Hey guys, Melvin here. Welcome to the attic. We're going to be reading a story from the RPG Horror Stories subreddit. This one was posted by user My Buddy My Dude. It's about a group of players who suffer the machinations of one of the worst DM archetypes, the author. Let's check it out. Our cast of characters for this campaign: Tiefling Artificer, played by me; Shifter Wizard, played by our previous DM; Catgirl Paladin, played by our previous Druid. This was a homebrew race specific to the campaign. So, let's start with some context. Once again, this was a homebrewed campaign. Our DM for this campaign created an entire world that was very rich and full of lore. The reason for this is that she was writing a book set in this universe. I thought, wow, that's really cool. Making your own world is hard. I'm excited to play. To be young. This happened a few months ago. Dumb, still true. And naive, also probably still true. The world consisted of a few different nations that had the D&D races, as well as some homebrew ones. For now, we'll discuss two races, the anime animal people and the technology aliens, which both had real names, but this is more fun. The anime animal people were basically cat girls, bunny girls, cow girls, etc. Our paladin was a member of this race. The technology aliens were descendants of aliens who couldn't do magic, but instead made really awesome tech that did magic similar effects. That last point is important, as it's the basis of my character. My tiefling artificer was neglected for most of her life. She found a book about the technology aliens and started making inventions like theirs. Hence, she became an artificer. Now, I'm going to emphasize that she didn't do magic. She built machines. I discussed this with the DM prior to our session 0 to be sure we were on the same page. The DM agreed. All of my artificer's spells were actually just gadgets she used to achieve the same effect. Like throwing a grenade instead of casting fireball or something. But again, she doesn't do magic. Also, just a quick note, I don't know if this is how everyone runs artificers, but this is what we agreed on for the campaign, as it fit with the lore of the world. There were already characters that couldn't use magic, instead making tech to imitate magic. So, session 0 went great. I had a blast. I was playing a character drastically different from my first. My artificer was basically young, impulsive, could be rather selfish, but just wanted to make friends with everyone. Also, she swore a lot and flipped everyone off, which was just a fun time for me. And whenever I cast a spell, I would explain how I imagined the tech would work. The DM was all for it. We end session 0 with everyone in the same big city. Then we get to session 1. Typically we had our sessions the same day and time every week. But the day of session 1, I had a family thing and asked if we could delay an hour. The other two PCs agreed. The DM vetoed that decision and just said I could arrive late. Alright, no big deal. I told them to just have my character chill at the base or something until I joined. I sign on about an hour late as expected, and everything is chaotic. My party is running all over the city while the DM is posting an ominous countdown in the chat. They try to catch me up to speed while still being productive, because the countdown didn't pause to let me get context for what the f was happening. That would be too easy. Basically, here's what happened. Wizard and Paladin met up, and Paladin informed Wizard that there was a prince in the city who was trying to assassinate his mother, the Queen, who was also visiting the city. Paladin knew the prince had some sort of plan, but wasn't sure what. So, they investigated and found out the prince was building a giant mech to destroy the city, I think? Anyway, they warned the Queen, and that's when the doomsday counter started. No explanation for why, just a doomsday counter. The two were trying to find the location of the mech when I joined. Now, you must be wondering, but buddy, what about your character? Did she just chill at the base? No. Apparently the DM had my character go out on her own adventure, with neither of the party members, just by herself. And on that adventure, she fought some cultists and met a small-breasted cowgirl. Yes, this was her constant description, who fell in love with my character on sight. Okay. Just a fun little side note here. But after this event, almost every NPC knew that the cowgirl liked my character, and not so subtly implied that if my character refused to date her, my character would probably be killed. Because this girl was the daughter of an assassin mafia or something. Did my other two party members get a forced romance? Of course not. I'm special. And if you ask yourself, hey buddy, didn't your last campaign have an attempted forced romance with the same player? Yes, it did. Probably just a coincidence. Anyway, finally find the location of the mech robot. Try to sneak into the warehouse. We're mostly successful. Fight a few baddies, things are going well. Still got like 5 hours on the doomsday clock. But then we hear the sound of something powering up. And there's a giant boom of energy. Everyone made a wisdom save. I fail. Artificer had comically low wisdom. Wizard fails. Paladin succeeds. The DM gleefully informs Wizard and I that we lost all of our spell slots. Confused, I interject, so wait, you mean magic spell slots? Because I don't cast spells, I use tools. DM, you lost your spell slots. You can't use any magic. Okay, right, but I'm saying I don't use magic, I use tools. So if it's an anti-magic thing, then I should still be okay. No, you failed the save. So you lose your spell slots. At this point, I don't want to keep arguing, because we're getting nowhere, so I just agree. Sure, my tech got scared by the big boom and doesn't want to work anymore. I'll just roll with it. I've made a comment addressing this point, but I'll put it here too. Yes, I know Raw has artificers as magic users. My confusion came from the fact that in this homebrew world, the technology aliens did not use magic, and instead made pure technology to imitate magic. If we used detect magic on their technology, it did not register as magic. Since my artificer learned her craft from them, I assumed her tech would be the same. If the DM had clarified that I used magic cores or something, or that the magic wipe was also some sort of EMP, I wouldn't have been confused. The giant mech thing bursts from the basement and is being piloted by the prince. Oh snap. What drama, what danger, what... Hey, wait. Aren't we just level 1? It quickly dawns on all of the players that we are woefully underleveled to handle this sort of encounter, but we don't really have options. The warehouse is located outside of the city. All of our allies are in the city and are far enough away that we couldn't reach them in time. We have no means to contact anyone, and this giant mech thing wants to destroy the city anyway. Guess we're gonna go out in a blaze of glory. Oh, and the doomsday clock? Still counting down. The wizard is slinging cantrips, but the mech keeps absorbing magic. Great. Our paladin is working to cut off its gun arm. It had one grabby arm and one gun arm, while my artificer is trying to smash her way into the cockpit with a hammer. The paladin manages to break off the arm, and we all cheer. Hurrah! DM. As the arm falls, you see the gun turn to train on you. Begin to power up. Paladin. Wait, how does it still have power? I detached it. No, you detached the other arm. Entire party. What? Despite the paladin specifically saying she was hacking away at the gun arm, you know, the biggest threat, the DM thought she was hacking away at the other arm. When we explained that we all thought she was focusing on the gun arm, the DM just told us nope. So, I'm trying to smash my way into the cockpit, which has a glass windshield, with my hammer, but I'm barely making any progress. Even when I roll a crit, the thing hardly cracks. Oh, and I'm rolling strength checks, not attack rolls. My spaghetti-armed tiefling child shockingly doesn't have high strength. Eventually the mech does another big blast and catapults all of us into the water surrounding the city. The mech charges up to shoot a laser at the city. We try to intervene, but the DM says we are all stunned, without rolling to save. The mech shoots the laser. We're all thinking, well, shit. Until a giant force field covers the city, absorbs the laser, and shoots it back at the mech. The mech is destroyed. The city is safe. So the session ends, and I realize that we were entirely unnecessary for this whole scenario. The mech was planning on shooting a laser at the city this whole time, and the city always had this defense. We could have done nothing, and everything would have been fine. Aren't we supposed to be heroes or something? The DM informs us that the countdown was for the technology aliens. Apparently they were planning on just destroying the whole neighborhood the mech was in to neutralize the threat. The DM also spent several minutes berating us for fighting the mech. DM: you weren't supposed to fight it. I wasn't prepared for you guys to fight it. Why would you do that? You should have just run away. Wizard: but you said it was going to destroy the whole city. Paladin: yeah, and you told me my character's mission was to stop the prince. DM: yes, but it wasn't supposed to happen yet. Me: but wait, didn't you just tell us the technology aliens would have destroyed the neighborhood if we did nothing? A ton of people would have still died. DM: they wouldn't have done that if you hadn't warned the queen about the assassination attempt. I'm confused. Wizard is confused. Paladin is the most confused because the DM primed her with this mission. So we were supposed to run away from danger, not tell the queen that her son wants to off her, and do what? Spend the session window shopping? I thought it was odd, especially since most players want to play heroes. But little did I know this was an omen for things to come. TLDR. Party is told that a mech is trying to destroy the city and assassinate the queen, warns the queen about the assassination, tries to fight the mech. In the end, the party is useless, because the city has a magic force field to defend itself. Then the DM yells at the party for trying to save the city, and thus ends our first tale from my second campaign. Trust me, there are more stories to follow. Well, that was frustrating. This may be one of the more egregious examples of railroading a party that I've ever seen. It's obvious that the DM had a very particular session in mind, which led to the players putting a lot of effort into essentially feeling like inefficient accessories in this world, populated by forces the DM has deemed much more worthy of the spotlight. This is a mistake I've seen DMs make, where they've meticulously worked out what they expect the players to do. To this DM, it was obvious that the players would consider their low levels and run away, and what I can only guess was some big setup for a story moment. This obviously negated player agency, but it also revealed the DM's inability to adapt to what the players were doing. This puts an immediate stop to any kind of potential for group storytelling, and instead emphasizes a strict hierarchy, where the DM has everything emphatically worked out, and the players have no real room for expression. Instead, that expression can be revoked at any moment when the DM wants them to behave a specific way. Their goal becomes to figure out exactly what the DM wants them to do. If the whole working on an epic novel thing didn't give it away, the author DM was one of those archetypes that can be a recipe for disaster. DMs that want to use their game world as some epic scale stage, without considering the fact that players have their own agency, with personal motivations and goals for their characters. It's a mistake which many DMs can make, but also learn from, overemphasizing the game world and bogging players down with a lot of lore and exposition that essentially doesn't amount for much. It's definitely something I've done in the past. The truth is, a small-scale game has as much potential to strongly affect players as a grand narrative, possibly more so. Even something like the classic D&D formula, where you've got a bunch of lowlives trying to make a quick buck, also known as adventurers. That has the potential to be a lot more impactful for players if they feel like the moment-to-moment gameplay is engaging and reactive to their input. If they feel like they're getting adequate feedback from that input, it results in them having a direct effect on the game's world, as it's defined by the parameters of each session. That, obviously, isn't just relegated to the mechanics, but also extends to role-playing. An old musty dungeon can feel a lot more alive than a bustling city if the DM takes the time to explain why the old one-eyed basilisk is skulking around in an ancient military garrison, not just by telling players like some mission description in a video game, but telling that story through the environment and emerging gameplay, like a good video game. That's not to say that DMs shouldn't invest in developing a big, detailed world if they want to, but realizing that it's in those nuanced details that players find their place in the world, where their influences can be most felt. Things that may seem inconsequential or tiny in comparison to the plots of deities and other powerful forces in the world. Alright everyone, that's it for tonight. Thank you for joining me here in the attic. Please give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Take care of yourselves out there. This is Melvin, in the attic, signing out.